What's up, world? It's your boy Key, man. We back at it again. Got another mixing tutorial today. Today we're gonna go over one of my songs, Fantasize, which will serve as the intro to my next EP, and with a focus on the kick and the bass. So in rapping and hip hop, the kick and the bass is the second most important aspect of the song next to the vocal, and it needs to hit hard. And at the same time, you need to be able to reach the same true peak that you're looking for and the lufts that you're looking for so that the streaming services don't crush your mix. And it's a very fine game to play, right? So we're going to go over that today. Let's start by playing, a little piece of the song so y'all can vibe out with me.
In my face you lied, with your hand of God. Now you back on block, trying to land a job. On the gram you watch, I know you a fan of mine. Glad I made it out the fire, could've lost another life. Hoes out, down the ride, make 'em work, Peloton. If you different, hit your line, holla back like Gwen Stefan. Head on flame, nigga that's Air Maze. Babushka on the brain, I'm on the airwaves. Yeah, wifey need that Fairway, she highbrow. If she got that wet, it never die down. Got the
So, something monumental, you feel what I'm saying? That shit was gas, you know what I mean? Like, if you here with me, I appreciate you. And so let's start it off by muting the vocal. And I'm going to take one effect off of the all beat so that we can start from the bottom here. Let's go by starting with the kick. So let's see how the kick sounds with the effects on it. All right, so before we get to how I started mixing the kick, I want to say, as you can see, right above kick is the stereo kick. So, and most track outs and stems that you receive as an artist or that you work with as an engineer will be stereo. But I got this tip. I don't know if it was from Mixed by Ali, but I remember he said, or someone said, that he makes sure his kick stays in mono. It doesn't need no stereo information because you want it to hit right down the middle. And that made a lot of sense to me. And so for a very long time, that's what I've been doing, right? So you go to your kick, right click, split into mono. It's going to give you a left and right channel and panned to the left and right. So, I delete the other one. I took the left channel here, panned it to 0. And it'll be lower, like, I don't know, like 4 dB or something like that. But and you start from there. So now we got like a mono kick. Conversely, I always keep my bass elements stereo because I like to image them very slightly. You feel what I'm saying? So, yeah. Now, for my kick, the first way I approach the kick is I have specific plugins that are emulated after real pieces of hardware that add character and color to the kick that I very much like. They add, a lot of thump to them. And so I'm going to start off with the Pultec EQP 1A. And so the character, just from turning it on, it's going to add some of that beefiness to the low end and really make it hit a lot harder. So let's A and B it, just the plugin, and then we'll start adding those effects in. So let's tighten it up. So with the plugin just on, it's going to add some of that character I like. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of 200. So I also like to bring up a Pro Q when I'm mixing, just to see what the waveform is doing, right? So let's keep that up. So we're gonna add a little bit of 200 here, and then we're gonna add a little over 2 dBs of. We're gonna add a little bit of 200 here and add a little over 2 dBs of 100 just to make it hit even harder, right? So next we're gonna put an SSL on here, E channel. The E channel by itself is gonna add a little bit of color, you know, very, very slight. I added a little bit of 230, 5.5 dB, you know, because as we shift those bell curves, we're changing the tonality of the signal. And so since it's my song, you know, I get to play producer on this song and move the sound of the kick along the way of me mixing. You might not have that ability as an engineer, but I'm going to show you my methodology and it might translate, right? So for me, I'm putting 0.5 of a little over 200, and at 360, I'm putting 0.3 dB, and at 600 hertz, I'm putting 1.8 dB. And those things are all for clarity. Those, you know, let's sweep some of those sections and see what they have to offer. So I'm really just looking for, you know, the sub elements and the elements of the kick that hit hard. You know, I made sure we're there when the Pultec was on, and now I'm just trying to boost a couple of other things later on in that frequency that is going to make the kick more audible. You know what I'm saying? A little more of those woody elements of the kick to make it really cut through, and obviously reshaping the signal. Then I have a Pro Q here, giving it a very slight high pass at 24 hertz, just to make sure that the below sub data is reserved for the bass elements. And what I decided to do was do some tonal shaping. The kick has not landed at the spot of its final volume yet, so this is not really like a volume change. It's just changing the sound of the kick, so let's see how it sounds. So prior, the kick was a little fattier. You feel what I'm saying? But I kind of want, through the entire mix, that thick section of the kick and bass to be occupied more so or perceived more so by the 808. And I want the kick to be a little thinner, but hit very hard as well. So just some reshaping of the signal for me is something that I enjoyed. Then I'm going to add the Puigchild 660, you know, the Fairchild compressor, just turning it on. I'm not doing anything else. Just running the signal through it is going to add some forwardness to it because the signal of the kick is very close to zero. So the compressor's already going to give some push even if the meter really isn't moving or barely moving. And it's also going to give it some nice character that I enjoy on the low end. Significant change. And, you know, if your kick is hitting so hard that the meter's moving more than you want it to, you can put the input gain down. You know what I'm saying? There you go. Then I'm going to skip the next plugin and go to a second Pro Q. So let's take this off. Now I'm just doing a broad stroke change, you know, just adding a little more 200, shaping the signal a little bit more, and then just doing another high pass just along the way. which I don't have to be doing, but I'm doing anyway. I think at this point, I was doing some more mixing with the kick and bass, and I decided to give the bass a little bit more room to work with, as I hear them together. And so instead of adjusting this here and pushing into the bell, I just decided to do it a second time, preference. And then I put a little Manny distortion just so that the kick will have added grittiness that'll cut through the mix. I actually put it loud enough that you can perceive some of the distortion. But I enjoyed it, and I'm allowed to because I'm the artist of the song, you know what I mean? So, but it's almost like a parallel, right? Like you put the mix up very slightly, 5 or 8 or something like that. It can give you just a little bit to be able to cut through. So we're gonna keep it like that, and let's show you how the kick and bass sounds together. All right. I'm over here playing tricks with the solo save, so. So let me show you how I approach the 808. Let's turn off these elements. Let's turn off these elements. This is the original 808. So I'll start off with the Pultec again for the same reasons, the color and the character. I'm going to do a good boost at 30 hertz, which is going to give it more thump. And that's about it for this one. Then I'm going to go into the Little Labs Voice of God. These are my settings here. I'm just... Let me actually... I'll show you something. Boom! Okay. So for the Little Labs, red, green, green. Red, or red, green, rather. Red, green. The center frequency is 42. And the frequency range is between 20 and 62 hertz. Keep that cheat sheet on me. So that's just a starting point. I sweep a frequency. I don't know exactly which one it's hitting. And then I boost the the amplitude, to where I like it. All you need to know is the Voice of God doing that thumpery. And I got this from Mixed by Ali for sure. Now we bring in a Pro Q. You feel what I'm saying? We're going to do a boost at 471 for some extra recognition of that sound through the mix, little bit of detail to cut through. And now I'm starting to shave off points for my vocal so that in the entire mix, it's not just muddying everything and then I'm having to boost the vocal to get it louder, yada, yada. You want to not only carve space in the melodic portions and in instrumentation, but I do so in the 808 as well because there's data over here, right? So I'm bringing down 1800, a little bit right before 5K I'm bringing down, and a little bit of 850 I'm bringing down. It's just all preference. And also, as you bring things down, always listen to that lead vocal because as the vocal is playing alongside your stems, once you start shifting spaces for the vocal to sit, if you're not shifting the entire side of the vocal and you're cutting certain frequencies, it's going to shift the perceived tonality of the vocal as well. So, yeah. And then we're gonna put a kick side chain in here, but then also at the same time I left a very slight boost along this entire section, which might have been an accident. I usually leave it at 0, but whatever it was at that point, I continued on mixing with that consideration. So it's not a big deal here, but I usually leave this on 0 dB and just it's meant for the sidechain. So let's see what it's doing. So that hit that the 808 is taking from the kick, it's very significant when you isolate the kick and bass. But in the context of the entire beat, I left it at a point where you can't really notice because you don't want to hear the pumping of the 808 going down. But you kind of want to push that boundary and see how far it goes, especially if like you're not doing click gain reduction at the first initiation of the 808 at every kick hit, which is a better way of doing it, but it's way more time consuming. So in this case, I'm not choosing to use that technique, and I'm relying heavily on side chains. And so the kicks, because it's so loud, I don't leave the sidechain input at 0. I usually go -14 so that when I get into the dynamic band here, usually the kick is hitting the red already and I could barely move it. Now I have room to move, you know what I mean? And always remember select that sidechain button so that it connects to the kick. That's how we do that. Moving on. I do some slight imaging. I put it a little on the side and I push it up ever so slightly, not too much, because I feel like you lose the thumpability of the 808 if you're just gonna like image it all crazy. You still want it to be a tight signal, but just a little bit so it could sit outside and build a little bit of dimension in the mix, right? So some S1 imager. It starts at 1. I put it at 1.07. And the Ozone imager is kind of what pushes it up and out. And I just put that at like 11. That's it. Now we go to all 808 where everything rolls up. I'm putting a little more imaging. Instead of fixing it here, I just chose to add it again. It's all preference. I was probably just going through the motion. So put it through 1.06. Let's see if it even makes a change. You know what? I probably did it for these 808s over here and left it as a consideration for this 808. So that's like for on this side. Let's show you how this one looks. You know what I mean? So let's go back here. And one of my favorite stereo imagers actually sits on Black Box. Except I'm also using its saturation properties. So Black Box is a saturation plugin. So just turning it on will give you some slight color and character. And the pentode stays at 50%, triode stays at 50%. The pentode seemingly pushes up like the center of the signal. The triode kind of like that right side of the signal. And yeah, the only thing I'm doing here is pushing up the triode 3%. And I'm imaging 11%. The stereo imager. And so let's show the A and B. And then on top of, the Pro Q is nice because you get to isolate the section you want to sidechain. So I'm sidechaining the low end. And so I always sidechain just the low end. But in addition to that, I do a broad stroke full signal sidechain using the SSL compressor here. And that one is going to be more slight because the more you compress, obviously, you sidechain the entire signal, it becomes more audible and perceptible through the mix. Right? Then we go up to all beat, where 808 and kick route to, and we put on a little orange clip. Love me some orange clip. So let's A and B that. So you can see before the signal was, tighter and sharper, but also a little thinner. I'm adding the orange clip primarily to control those peaks. But in addition, if you hit the clipper at the right level, it's going to add some of that sauce to the kick. And it did in this case, right? And so usually what I do is I'll put the orange all the way down, changes the knee up here at top. And I'll kind of move it up until I get to that point where you just feel that crispness in the kick, and it just hitting through the mix the right way you want. And yeah, I landed at negative 3.9, right? So let me show you what I was hearing. You feel what I'm saying? And obviously it goes into my 2 bus. But because orange clip is clipping it at 0 dB, we're not hitting the gold clip. On my 2 bus, in my Ozone, I'm bumping up wideband, the low end here. On my curve bender, I am not doing anything. I have a little bit of Shadow Hills playing here, and no low end boost on my master plan. So that's kind of the addition on top of that. And after that, I think the most important thing is to also highlight, to get this kick to cut through the entire mix as the song is playing. I've done all the work to the kick in the 808, but then you also have to carve out at different levels every element of the song, so to make sure that kick cuts through. Even though it's all slight, every melody, on the piano, these pro cues on the piano, on the vocal sound effects, they're all gonna have high passes to make consideration, but elements are different, and so when they all rise up to the all melody or those top level auxes, you're still gonna have some low end information, and it will definitely cut through better, and you'll hear the A and B of it cutting through better once you start making some of those considerations. And so obviously on all melody I have that. I have side chains on my vocals, actually very slight on the low end, I believe on my all vocals. Right, there you go, right there. So on my all vocals, I push the dynamic bell EQ until I get to a point where I feel like I'm starting to hear it through the mix, and then I cut it back, and I find that sweet spot.
Peloton, if you different, hit your line. Holla back like Gwen Stefan, head on flame. Nigga, that's air maze. Babushka on the brain, I'm on the airwaves. Yeah. Peloton, if you different, hit your line. Holla back like Gwen Stefan, head on flame. Nigga, that's air maze.
So obviously, at the point of the impact of the kick, it's taking up your attention and the purpose of the song at that moment. That is the spotlight. And so it's imperceptible to the listener that the low end of your voice is going out. Now, obviously, as we shift more into the part of my voice that is very perceptible, I have a lighter dynamic EQ going on over here.
Peloton, if you different, hit your line. Holla back like Gwen Stefan.
So you can see the work that I'm trying to do. It's slight. It's the accumulation of every change, right? A little bit on the vocal, more of it on the melody, but enough that it's imperceptible to the listener in totality. But those little changes will help the kick cut through on top of the fact that you're mixing the kick and bass to your liking. In addition, depending on the song, not in this case, I'll have an 808 sidechain because depending on the song, like that 808 element might be more punchy and more musical. And at that point, you could definitely create an 808 sidechain. And as you have a stronger sidechain on your melody with the kick, you can have a lighter sidechain on your melody from the 808 as well to maybe give space to that. You know, this whole shit is creativity, whole shit is art, you feel what I'm saying? And the goal is to make the song sound good. Yeah, and that's it. That's all I got for you today. Hope that helped you guys out, you know what I mean? And you can really translate that to a rap mix. It's the accumulation of those little ideas. You know, you learn from this video, you might learn from another video, and you put those together and you kind of build an image of what you can do to service a mix, you know, and that kick and that bass is supreme in rap, you know what I mean? And so, hope this helps. Appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. Peace.